The French Language by Jessica Pugliafico and Kylie Glavin. Section 1. Background. Where French comes from. The earliest French text dates back to 842. Gaul was once where modern-day France and Belgium are, but then essentially ceased to exist after many conquests of the Roman Empire and Germanic tribes. The French language started out as a Gaulish language, which is Celtic, but then evolved into more. The Romans introduced Latin, and because of their dominating nature at the time, Latin took control of most of the language. The French language is known as a Romance language because of the fact how it derives from Vulgar Latin. The French language has Germanic roots in the language as well.
French around the globe. French is spoken in many different countries due to the imperialism during this time period. A country most famous for speaking French, besides France, is Canada, and more specifically Quebec. This land came to be French when Jacques Cartier, a European explorer, pushed west in 1534 and claimed the land as New France.
French in France. French has been the official language of France since 1992. There are 28 different dialects of French spoken in France. They include Alsatian, Lorraine, Champenois, Picard, Normand, Breton, Thuringian, Orleanese, Berrichon, Paris, Burgundy, Marseille, Corsica, Lyon, Gascony, and Languedoc. The standard dialect is Parisian. This is known as the proper way to speak the language. The English language has actually influenced the Parisian dialect. They add the definite and indefinite articles.
Some interesting facts about the French language. French is one of the 5 most spoken Romance languages around the world. Most French words end in a vowel. Different dialects use different idioms and phrases. During the French Revolution, 75% of French citizens did not speak French as a native language at this time. We use French words all the time in our everyday language. An example of this is déjà vu.
The writing system. The French language is mainly based off the Latin alphabet, 5 diacritics and 2 ligatures. The diacritics assist in the pronunciation of what is written. These were not really used along with the ligatures until the 16th century, after the printing press was invented to prevent constant repetition of sounds and letters. We will see an example of this when we go over the French vowels. For example, the letter E is spoken in 2 different ways. French sentences are formatted like English sentences, subject, verb, and object.
Section 2. Analysis and comparison. Syntax is the arrangement of words to form a sentence.
English and French have the same basic sentence structure, subject, verb, and object. An example in English is the boy studies, which translates into French as le garçon étudie. The use of articles between English and French are very similar but are not identical and can lead to some sentence structures being different in translation. French pronouns are based on the gender of the noun they are associated with. For example, you can be talking about a man in a sentence, but the pronouns will translate to she because of the object being talking about. Possessive adjectives agree with the nouns they qualify. French and English both have auxiliaries, participles, active, passive voice, past, present, future tenses. French students often use the wrong verb tense.
Phonology is the study of speech sounds.
The French alphabet is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. And the vowels are A, E, I, O, and U.
Phonology. There are 37 different phonetic sounds in the French alphabet, but only 26 letters. French people do not use the tip of their tongue, so a sound like th is very difficult for them to learn. The H sound in the beginning or end of words does not exist in the French language. This causes French ELL students to not be able to say words like have or help. The stress patterns in French phonology are different than some of the stress in English phonology, and that confuses a lot of French students because of similar words that are spelled differently.
Difficulties with phonology continue. French people often do not pronounce the letter T when it is at the end of the word. Words such as flat, cat, bat, sat can be difficult for these language learners. Other letters that French speakers do not pronounce at the end of the word is G, D, S, and X. An example of this is that the word cat in French is chat. It is spelled C-H-A-T, but we do not pronounce the T at the end of the word.
Morphology is the study of meaningful parts of words.
French morphology. French consonants can be B, C, K, D, F, G, H, J, K, L, M, N, P, Q, R, S, T, V, X, Z. French vowels are written as E, I, O, U, Y, but the E is pronounced two different ways. There are 5 different tenses in the French language, which are present, future, conditional, imperfect, and past.
Problems with English morphology. In English, a lot of our letters can be pronounced differently, but all those sounds are considered the same letter. In French, they separate the letters that are pronounced differently with the diacritics they use. For example, the letter E can be written in the French language as E, A, or E, depending on the word. However, in the English language, all the different sounds are spelled with just E or E. French students learning English need to be able to make these distinctions on their own, following English rules. A rule they can keep in mind about how to use the letter E is how with English vowels they either say their name or they don't. Sometimes when an E is on the end of the word, this signals that the other vowels will say its name, but the E is silent. An example of this is the word love.
Semantics is the study of meaning in language. Implications with semantics. The French speak and write very formally. They are not used to something like contractions, which is a form of informal semantics in the English language. Most languages in general do not use contractions, and that is a hard concept for ELL students to grasp. As a teacher, it is important to keep in mind when working with a French ELL student, this is a common form of semantics for us, but not for our culturally diverse students. In French, you have 2 different forms of the word for the one English word. For example, you. One is informal, tu, and one is formal, votre. It may be difficult for a student to understand that we only have one form of the word, and it is not considered disrespectful to use the word for everyone.
Idioms. Idioms exist in every language but often do not translate well between different languages. They tend to be unique to each country and to each language. An example of a French idiom is la moutarde mi monte a nez, which literally translates to mustard up the nose in English. But in French, it means that someone is getting angry. We do not use this idiom in America, so we would not know what it meant. Just like this example of a French idiom not being used in America, there are many American idioms that French people are not aware about, and we need to be aware of this in the classroom when we are talking about idioms. An example of an English idiom that a French ELL student may not understand is, wow, it's raining cats and dogs outside. A French ELL student might take this to be literal, and they could get nervous or confused about the situation.
Difficulties for French ELL students. Most tests in the French school system are not based on multiple choice, but they are focused on writing prompts and listening. Standardized tests are uncommon in France. Students usually have a hard time participating because if they answer questions incorrectly, they will be teased. Teachers are thought to know everything in the classroom. Math is the most important subject in French school systems. Students are not able to pick classes of their choice in high school. This is not something they would be used to when moving to the US.